Before we get started, we just want to thank Old Republic Surety for sponsoring this episode of Let's Get Surety, as well as NASBP virtual seminars for the 5th year in a row. For more information on Old Republic Surety, visit www.orsurety.com. Now on to our show.
You're listening to Let's Get Surety. Let me hear your bonding talk with Kat Shamapande.
Hey everyone, it's Kat Shamapande. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Let's Get Surety. Got with me today my co-host, Mark McCallum, CEO of NASBP. Hey Mark, thanks for being on.
Absolutely. We're talking about a subject near and dear to my heart. I'm very excited about it.
We're going to be talking about the legislative fly-in. It's a really important piece of work that NASBP does.
Absolutely. I think it's probably one of the most important things that a professional can do is to advocate for their livelihood and their industry.
As I've heard people say, we've been legislated in, we could be legislated out, and it's our job to make sure that doesn't happen.
That's right.
And show people the value of the Surety product.
Yep.
So to talk about this today with us, we've got Larry LeClair, Director of Government Relations here at NASBP. Hey, Larry, thanks for being on.
Hey, Kat. Glad to be here. Glad to join you again. This is a big issue that we always engage on. Every year, it's one of our premier events that we showcase, and glad to spread the word about the importance of the fly-in.
That's terrific. It's great to have you on again, Larry. We also have with us today Alan Stark, Chair of Government Relations Committee here at NASBP and Senior Vice President, Surety Practice Group Leader with Christensen Group Insurance.
Thanks, Kat. Great to be here today and to talk about the fly-in and hopefully make everyone more educated about it.
Well, we're glad to have you on, especially as the Chair of Government Relations. Who better could we have on with us? I mean, I think the runner-up here
There you go.
is Matt Cocco. He's the Vice Chair of the Government Relations Committee here at NASBP, and he's a partner with Smith Brothers Insurance. Thanks for being on, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Kat. Thanks for having me. The legislative fly-in, I think it's a great opportunity for NASBP members to really participate and demonstrate their commitment to the surety industry.
That's a great point, yeah. Well, before we dive into the fly-in just head on, Alan, you want to just tell us a little bit about your background and about your agency?
Yeah, I work for Christensen Group Insurance. I run their surety practice. I've been in the surety business since 2003. My father, who's been a long-time NASBP member prior to that, so I guess I kind of grew up in the surety industry, got involved in the government relations side of things 2 years ago. I became the chair when Monica Donatelli got on the leadership role. So I've been diving into it then and was a co-chair before that. And so really excited about the fly-in and to dive into that and learn more from Larry about all the different efforts that NASBP does on the government relations side of it.
That's terrific. Hey, Matt, how about you? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about Smith Brothers?
Yeah, sure. So I've been with Smith Brothers Insurance for a little over 2 years. I'm currently a partner there. We're located in Glastonbury, Connecticut, primarily a northeastern agency with our primary office in Connecticut and offices in Massachusetts and New York. Prior to that, I was with Traveler Surety and also Liberty Mutual Surety. And in my prior life, I actually had some experience working on some different legislative efforts at Travelers and also with ABC and AGC on their government relations committee.
Oh, that's great.
And as an agency, Smith Brothers has always, for as long as I can remember, has always been an NASBP member, but our membership and our interest in NASBP was really invigorated when we recently acquired the agency of Chris Como. And Chris is a long time NASBP member.
Definitely, very long.
And Chris made it a point to make sure that we continued on with his legacy with NASBP. And I was very grateful that Larry allowed me to join government relations 2 years ago.
Yeah, and Chris is a great advocate
Definitely.
in his own right for surety and a great participant in the legislative fly-in over the years.
Absolutely. No, I mean, Chris has always been a big, strong supporter of NASBP and its advocacy efforts. And I'm glad to have Matt certainly on the northeast side of the country that I can tap into. If there's an issue, certainly in Hartford, Connecticut, I can reach out to Matt, or whether it be Hartford or Boston, I certainly know who I can go to. And he's someone that we can count on to be our advocate in the northeast. So I'm glad he joined the Government Relations Committee, and certainly as the vice chair. And to Alan, he was involved a couple years ago, as he mentioned, when Monica was chair, and then picked up the mantle as chair and has ran with it ever since. And a big part of Alan's commitment is the fly-in, and he certainly wants to increase the numbers from last year. I think we can do that. I think Alan has some good ideas, and I think he'll probably talk about those ideas here in a bit.
I'd love to hear.
Larry, before we get into the details, Can you kind of characterize why it's so important to have those touch points by constituents to congressional offices?
I mean, to me, a couple. When we get ready and we do the fly-in, we always create these talking points. And the number, I think the number one point, of course, is we talk about the importance of the product and make sure the first thing you do when you go into congressional office is talk about suretyship. And a lot of times staff don't understand the importance of the bond. So you educate them on suretyship and the role it plays for subcontractors and suppliers, of course, with the payment protection and the performance protection of the federal and or state government. But the other emphasis and the other point I often ask folks to make is talk about the number of jobs that the bond protects in your particular state. Talk about contracts that you're involved with. Talk about the construction contractors that you work with, the number of employees on that particular job site and or through that construction company. Offices want to know the importance of the product and how many employees are you touching in that particular state, the economy itself. They want to know about jobs. And those are a big issue that certainly congressional offices want to learn about.
Right. And I mentioned, it's one thing when we would go into congressional office and they want to hear what we have to say.
Right.
But it's another thing when it's an actual voting constituent who goes in there and it makes that issue or whatever you want to address really real to that member of Congress, right?
Constituent support is the number one issue that congressional offices want to know about, and they count votes. I mean, when Mark and I go into an office, whether it be a legislator in Minnesota or Connecticut, we don't live in Minnesota or Connecticut. But these two gentlemen, they live in that state. They're a voting constituent, and they certainly want to know what's going on with their businesses and how it impacts those particular either congressional districts or if you're going into a U.S. Senate office, the entire state itself. So constituent support is a big issue.
Yeah, I think to echo Larry's comments at the last fly-in, I think that was a lot of what we all saw is I had numerous questions from the aides and people of, how many clients do we have in the state and how many employees does our average client have and how much revenue does our average client do? And I think that helped set the stage to listen to what we were, the talking points we had. So.
Yep. And I would also just add to the other thing that was they really like hearing, and it's important for them to hear, is that the payment bond protects a lot of small businesses that are in their district as well. And when they hear that those small businesses are protected, it really is a eye-opening moment for them.
Well, and when you go into those congressional offices or Senate offices, do you find that they know much about what surety is?
No, they don't know anything, which is that's our job to educate them, and they're interested. They want to understand the basics of our product. Like Matt said, they're interested in how it helps out the small emerging MBWE contractors throughout the process. They're interested in that. So NASBP does a good job of prepping us and explaining to us that we are the expert when we walk into that office. This person is so as somebody said earlier this week, an aggregator of information.
And that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
And that's what they're aggregating the information to take it back to their, if it's an aide to their boss. So they're really trying to get as much information out of us in the 15 to 30 minute meeting that they're having with us.
Yeah. And that's why people shouldn't be intimidated to go down to the legislative fly-in, because you are the subject matter expert and the legislative staffers are going to look to you to educate them, not the other way around.
That's such a great point. And it can be really intimidating when you're going to speak with someone you've seen on TV or, giving speeches in a larger auditorium. I mean, Larry, I know you've had questions from members before about, what to do when you're meeting with your legislature.
To Matt's point, certainly the bond producer or the underwriter that goes into the office is going to likely know more than the staffer that they're meeting with. So I think the fly-in participant can feel pretty well assured that that's going to be the case. In any event, we certainly prep the attendees well in advance. And the other point I would like to make as well is we've had opportunities where if you're a little uncertain about going into meetings, Mark and I have always lent our participation and going with you. If you feel a little apprehensive or reluctant about going by yourself, and especially if it's your first time as a fly-in attendee, we want to make everyone feel comfortable. And I know I've done that on many occasions. I've gone to first time attendees and their visits, and I think that's important just so they get their footing in it.
And we have a lot of long-time participants in the fly-in, and if you do come for your first time, you will be paired with somebody that's experienced, whether it's Larry or Mark, an NASBP staffer, or an experienced person from your same area that's going to the same meetings with you. And, to kind of follow up on this, NASBP makes this fly-in process so easy for us. They've got an app with a third-party vendor that sets the meetings for us. We really just show up. They educate us the night before the meetings. You go out. We have our talking points. We have all the material. You have everything you need to go do this. It doesn't take somebody that's been involved in government in the past or understands the background of these people or has any experience with government relations at all. You can show up. You're going to be prepared when you walk up on the Hill for those meetings. And kind of one key takeaway from this podcast we want everybody to know is not to be intimidated from it. That we've all been there their first time and we all got through it. We all got through it. We keep coming back. Yes, right. And we're still here. So
yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of orientation up front then that occurs, Larry. So you have the talking points. Is there an occasion for them to hear about those talking points before they even arrive in Washington, or how does that work?
Yeah, and typically what we will do is we'll schedule a virtual seminar a week prior to the fly-in, and we'll review the talking points with the attendees. So there's that opportunity on the front end, usually about a week before. And then usually the day of, we'll also run again through the talking points, just in case anyone has any particular questions, so they can feel comfortable and confident about the message points and what we were asking the attendees to deliver. And they'll get the talking points well in advance, so they can review those points prior to the virtual seminar and or the day of the event activity as well.
So Matt, you made the point that, you really are the subject matter expert going into that office. But before you did this, did you ever feel intimidated? Like, well, what happens if they ask me a question and I'm not sure? Has that happened? And what would you do in that situation? Or do you feel pretty comfortable?
Yeah, I feel the 2 years that I've gone, actually, I did it 3 years. I did the virtual one right after COVID. All of my times participating with legislative fly-in, I always felt confident that I was well armed in advance to answer any questions that might come up, and any questions that do come up. The best bet is to just say, "Hey, I don't know the answer. Let me get back to you with the right answer," versus trying to fake it.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
So
That's what we always say is if you don't have a clear understanding of the answer, don't feel embarrassed to say, "I don't know," or someone from NASBP staff will certainly respond to that question.
And the other thing, too, is when you go and you meet with the legislative staffers, you're going to be with a group of people. So even if you don't know the answer, somebody in the group might as well. And the legislative staffers, they're not asking you questions to try to trick you. It's not a hey, gotcha moment. They're curious. Exactly. And this is, for some of them, this is the first time that they're hearing about the proposed legislation that we're talking about, or the first time hearing about surety. So again, their minds start working, and they're just curious and they want to know more.
Right. So Alan, so you talked about legislative staffers. Is that typically who you might meet with? Do you meet with the member, or is it typically a legislative aide, or how does that work? And what does that look like? Do you get scheduled with that person and then, actually visit the office? And
so when the advocacy group, I think it's roughly 24 hours before we get there, they kind of finalize your schedule that you're going to have. And they have a wonderful app that gives you that. And in the app, it gives you the detail who you're going to meet with for that day. It's the app has a map of the hills for you to know where you're going, whether it's the Congress or the House, or the Senate. And you then go and you walk in the office. There's a receptionist that greets you kindly, ask your name, you're on the schedule. They the person comes out, whoever it may be. Sometimes, like you said, staffer, aide. I have not had the opportunity to meet with the actual senator or congressperson, but many of the people this year actually did have that ability to do that. I think Matt did as well. And so it just depends on the scheduling of how that happens. But you'll know when you walk into the meeting from the Advocacy Day app who you're going to meet with, so you know their name ahead of time, and you can, possibly, have seen them before in previous meetings on the Hill and different things. You might have slowly gain a relationship with that individual that you're meeting with.
And typically, how long would a meeting like that last?
In my experience, they've been 15 minutes to a half hour. I think roughly they give you block off half-hour meetings is kind of the standard meeting block. I've had some that have lasted longer than that. And again, when ones lasted longer than that, I was late to the next meeting. They were very understanding. The aides, the receptionists, everybody's understanding these fly-in days, and this happens with other industries up there.
Right.
So if you're 5 or 10 minutes late, it's not a stressful situation. Yep. The aide or whoever you're meeting with is very used to that. They're just in the back room doing their work, waiting for you. They're not. It's not a negative if you happen to be 5 or 10 minutes late because one meeting went long.
Right, and I've seen instances where an aide may even help find the next meeting location. Because they know, because of these fly-ins, that people can get confused on where they're going.
And they might know the secret hallway and stairway.
Right.
Not secret, a special stairway that could get you there faster. So everything's helpful up there. Again, they're used to groups like us coming up on the Hill doing these types of things. They like it because they're seeing their constituents. So everybody's in a great mood at these meetings. They want you there. They want to learn about you. They want to tell a little about themselves and how they, their history from their state, why they got there. It's really a fun experience for these people because they have, you have some commonality because most likely even the aides, you're from a lot of times the same state. And so you've got that when you walk in, it's the normal small talk and you've got something to talk about for that first 30 seconds to 2 minutes of the meeting before you get into the heavy lifting, quote unquote, that we're doing there.
Right. They make you feel comfortable because you have that commonality that you're from the state or perhaps even the home town.
Yeah,
from,
absolutely.
Right?
You talk about the sport team or, whatever it may be that interests you, and they're going to perk up because that gives them a little taste of their hometown when you walk in and talk about that. A lot of them are going to have memorabilia from your state on the wall, whether it be maps or sports jerseys or whatever it may be. So you're going to walk in the room and have an instant commonality with that person because you're going to see something on the walls that you can grab onto and say, oh, cool, it's neat that I see this on your wall. And that kind of gets the ball rolling to start off the meeting.
Yeah. Larry, in terms of, should it matter whether or not somebody meets with a legislative aide versus the member? Like, should they feel like they didn't get full value, or how should they look at that?
I'm oftentimes when I have meetings on the Hill, it's usually with the staff that handles that particular portfolio for construction, that issue, insurance-related issues. Very rarely do I ever meet with a member of Congress. So I would say that attendees should not feel slighted that they're not meeting with their member of Congress. If they do, that's a plus, that's a bonus, but it's no slight on the attendee or the particular issue. Keep in mind the aide or the legislative assistant that you'll be meeting with certainly will deliver any message back to his or her chief of staff of the office. That's their immediate supervisor. So they'll deliver any message points that were made during the meeting. So it's certainly an added plus to meet with the member of Congress, but it's no detriment if you don't.
Right.
Well, and Matt, you said you did meet with a member of Congress and had the opportunity to do that. Is that more intimidating since you've kind of been in both scenarios?
No. So 2 years ago, we actually had a meeting with the congressman, and it was great. And the thing that really impressed me about that meeting was how engaged he was. He was asking a lot of thoughtful questions, and he was really leaning into the subject. So I thought that was really cool, and it wasn't intimidating at all because he didn't let it become intimidating.
That's great.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that was good. And then this past year, it was actually kind of a freak occurrence that we had a meeting with the congressman. We were walking to the office to meet with a legislative staffer, and he was coming back in. I'm not sure what he was coming back to the office for. It was an unplanned visit. And we ended up talking with him for about 10 minutes about why we were there.
Oh, that's true.
And it was great. And again, he was also very engaged. I mean, you got to remember their time is limited, and so they don't always have a lot of time to give you. But he asked a lot of very thoughtful questions, and again, just like 2 years ago, this congressman was leaning in and really
That's
engaged.
terrific.
So we talked a little bit about delivering points. Now, is this a whole treatise we're talking about, or are these very cogent? You're being concise in your message. How does this work?
We've usually got 2 to 3 points that we're trying to deliver. Again, Advocacy Day, Larry and Mark, the NASBP staff, give us great handouts that are pre-printed that we walk in with. The talking points are not extremely complex. We're working on the 30,000 foot level that we're trying to explain. Again, we're between us, the Advocacy Day, giving them information when we set the meeting, us following up. That's when the real details of the information get to them. We're talking at a pretty high level. Again, we're educated on the details, but the talking points are at a high level.
Okay.
And we usually do a leave behind too. So we'll have the actual talking points with us, and we'll leave that behind with the legislative staff, or sometimes multiple copies so they can distribute it throughout the office.
I mean, I think we want to keep, and Mark's, these questions are great to understand how easy of a process this is, that NASBP does all the work for us basically before we get there. You get there, the materials are there, everything's there and ready for us. And there's, again, nothing to be intimidated about in this process.
With all this work that goes into making this happen, it must be expensive to attend.
NASBP has done an amazing thing and made this a free event to attend. You'll obviously have to get there. There's a hotel room. They do have a hotel block you can get, a reasonably priced hotel room at. And I think the other thing we should talk about today is the amazing programming that NASBP puts on for the Washington week the day prior to this. And last year they had Amy Walter, a pundit, talk. It was a great event. And we had a panel of heads of sureties that was moderated by Monica Donatelli. That was a great opportunity to have 3 heads of sureties there to talk about. And I mean, the networking and just everything that's involved with this event is amazing use of our time as a surety producer.
So it sounds like you're not just educating, you're being educated as well.
We're being very educated. I think that the Washington Week content was amazing. Everybody, I think, that came out of it was very impressed with what NASBP was able to put together for that Washington Week. There was a lot of good takeaways from the event besides just educating the up on the hill. There was great takeaways that we as surety producers took away from that as well.
Right. Now, Larry, you had said it's not just bond producers, it's surety underwriters, because we work collaboratively with Surety and Fidelity and try to do a joint fly-in. Plus, we also have affiliates that attend as well. So Matt, do you find that to be like, an opportunity to further build relationships with colleagues and in this context?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You're down there, like Alan said, you're down there the day before, and there's some programming that takes place the day before. And then you get a chance to spend time with your underwriter. So, if you have a local underwriter that goes down there as well, you get a chance to network with them and spend some quality time with them.
You mentioned, Alan, the Washington program, and then are there other components? For example, is there a welcoming reception? And what is that like?
Yeah, on the day we flew in, we had the programming on Washington stuff, and then after that, there was a welcome reception that we all did a lot of networking in. We had multiple different senators and Congress people come to the reception and give us a little talk there. So we had opportunities to meet them, and they were the friends of the surety industry that have helped us support some of the bills that we wanted carried in the past. So great people to meet and have the opportunity to that were already friends of the organization, as obviously they showed up for it. And then throughout the time of the event, there was networking going on throughout it, but the reception was really nice that we did after the presentation on the first day, so that everybody had a chance to meet everybody, get to know some people. Again, there was, because of the SFAA connection there, it was great networking with a lot of different levels of the surety industry, not only the underwriters like Matt talked about, multiple different levels of their executives there as well. And so great. One of the things I think has been understated in the past of this event is the ability to network there with both colleagues on the production side of the surety and on the home office and underwriting side.
So just from a convenience standpoint, are we asking people to be elsewhere in DC and have to somehow get to the Hill, or is this a conveniently located event, Larry?
The hotel is a few blocks from the Senate side of the Capitol, so it's an easy walk. The House side is a little bit further, but not much further. So it's totally convenient for attendees to just walk to the U.S. Capitol, either both Senate and House side, and we make it as easy as pie.
I've never seen travel and logistics this easy of landing. You're in the hotel, checked in within a half hour of your plane hitting the ground, and then you're close to the hill. We make it as easy as you possibly can.
Yeah, and with the amount of flights that come direct to DC, it's easy for everyone around the country to get into DC. And like Alan said, it's a 12-minute Uber ride from the airport to the hotel. And if traffic is bad, the metro stop is right at the airport, and it'll take you right to near the hotel.
So if you're that close to the Senate side, sounds like if the Capitol's right there, Library of Congress, Supreme Court. So if you have free time, it sounds like it's a good way to take in DC as well.
Sightseeing.
And that's and we the three of us were chatting beforehand, and we've seen events where families will come with their children. I can recall several years ago, a member of NASBP brought his daughter. And one of the House members brought his daughter down to the House floor and treated her to an ice cream cone. So it can be an educational opportunity for families as well.
Right. So they could even plan a family trip.
Absolutely.
With this.
Whether you go to the Library of Congress or one of the Smithsonian museums or take a tour of the U.S. Capitol, there's a lot to do for families if you have that opportunity.
A lot of it's within walking distance of the hotel as well. Yeah, the first year that I went to the legislative fly-in in person, that was actually, believe it or not, my first time going to Washington, D.C. I had never gone even on a school trip. And it was a great experience to not only see the Capitol, but to be able to walk down to the White House and to see all the different landmarks in DC.
I mean, that's terrific. What would you say to someone who's considering or hasn't attended yet? Why should they consider coming to the fly-in?
They should check it out. It's a neat experience, as you said earlier, Kat. And this, we're legislated in. This helps fuel our industry, and we need to keep supporting this, because if the more relationships we have up there, if there is a issue that starts to really threaten our industry, we'll have those relationships to be able to push back on that. And so even if this specific topics that we're talking about at the fly-in don't necessarily affect you personally, the relationships matter for the future when something does affect us personally. And that's the big piece, is to start building these relationships on the Hill to protect our industry if it ever gets attacked in the future.
So to that end, maybe the last question. So has anything ever been impacted, positively, an issue as a result of fly-in participation? Larry, do you recall anything like that?
Well, I can think of one issue in particular where a past government relations chair, former client, actually won a House seat. As a contractor, and that particular contractor ended up carrying a bill for us shortly thereafter being elected to the House. So relationships matter. This is a relationship business, and this particular government relations chair actually had a client who was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives, and that member of Congress carried a bill for us, which was enacted into law, which made a big difference.
Wow. So real results, real impact.
It matters. It matters. Showing up matters.
Well, I just want to thank you. It's been great, Alan, and it's been great, Matt, having you on with us, and Larry.
Of course.
So much great information about the fly-in. I hope we see a lot of producers there when the fly-in comes up. A lot of underwriters as well. Thanks so much for being on. Hopefully we'll get you back on to talk about how the fly-in went.
Right on. Thanks, Kat.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Let's Get Surety, brought to you by the National Association of Surety Bond Producers. For more information about the NASBP and its members, visit nasbp.org.
Before we go, we just want to say thank you again to Old Republic Surety for their generous support in sponsoring this episode of Let's Get Surety. For more information on Old Republic Surety, visit www.orsurety.com.